My name is Samantha Wilson, though everyone calls me Sam, and I'm 28 years old. I've worked at Maxwell & Brooks Marketing for 3 years now, always hoping to make my mark. That Tuesday morning, I greeted a lost visitor using ASL, a skill I learned from my deaf cousin. It was such a small gesture, something I did without thinking twice. I had absolutely no idea that this simple moment of human connection would completely transform my career path overnight. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had a small action change your life in ways you never expected. Maxwell & Brooks was the kind of marketing firm that college graduates dreamed of joining. The Glass and Steel building in downtown Chicago housed some of the most creative minds in the business, with clients ranging from local startups to multinational corporations. As a mid-level marketing coordinator, I was responsible for supporting the creative teams, gathering market research, and occasionally contributing ideas that rarely received recognition. My mornings typically started with a large cold brew coffee and a mental pep talk as I rode the elevator to the 23rd floor. I'd arrive at my cubicle by 7:45 a.m., 15 minutes before official hours, to review emails and prepare for the day. By 8 a.m., the office would buzz with activity, phones ringing, keyboards clacking, and the occasional burst of laughter from the creative department. 3 years into my position, I felt painfully stuck. My performance reviews were consistently positive, meets expectations with the occasional exceeds expectations, but never outstanding enough to warrant the promotion I desperately wanted. Creative director was my dream role, but at this rate, I'd be 40 before reaching it. You know what your problem is? Riley Matthews, my closest work friend, once told me during our lunch break at the small cafe across the street. You're too good at your current job. Why would they promote you when you make their lives so easy right where you are? Riley was the only person at Maxwell & Brooks who truly understood my frustration. She worked in account management and had similarly struggled to advance despite her obvious talent. I just need something to make me stand out, I replied, picking at my salad. But with Derek as my boss, that's never going to happen. Derek Fletcher, my direct supervisor and the current creative director, epitomized the phrase takes credit for others' work. He had a talent for presenting my ideas as his own during meetings with upper management. When clients loved concepts I had developed, Derek would accept the praise without acknowledging my contribution. It was infuriating but unfortunately common in our competitive industry. Maybe you should start signing your ideas in invisible ink, Riley joked, making me laugh despite my frustration. What Riley didn't know, and few people at the office did, was that I was fluent in American Sign Language. I had learned ASL growing up alongside my cousin Harper, who was born deaf. Throughout our childhood, I watched how people treated Harper differently, sometimes with pity, often with awkwardness, and occasionally with outright dismissal. Learning to sign wasn't just about communicating with Harper, it was about understanding her world. By the time we reached high school, I was sufficiently fluent to interpret for her at family gatherings and occasionally at school events. Those experiences shaped me profoundly, though they rarely came up in my professional life. Chicago had a vibrant deaf community, but my marketing work seldom intersected with it. Sometimes I'd chat with a deaf barista at my favorite coffee shop, but those brief exchanges were the extent of my ASL usage in recent years. The week that changed everything started like any other, except for the looming pressure of an important client meeting. Maxwell & Brooks was pitching to retain one of our largest accounts, Horizon Technologies, and everyone was feeling the pressure. The presentation was scheduled for Wednesday morning, and the entire office was in preparation mode. Sam, I need you to compile the market research data for the Horizon pitch, Derek instructed during our Monday morning team meeting. And make sure the conference room is properly set up tomorrow, refreshments, presentation materials, everything perfect. Actually, Derek, I've been working on some concepts for the Horizon campaign that I think could really, I started, hoping to finally contribute more substantially. We've got the creative angle covered, he interrupted, not even making eye contact as he scrolled through his phone. Just focus on what I've assigned you. The dismissal stung, but it wasn't unexpected. I nodded professionally and jotted down his instructions, while mentally adding another tally to the reasons to eventually leave this job column in my head. That evening, I stayed late compiling the research data, determined to make my contribution flawless even if it wouldn't be acknowledged. The office emptied gradually until only the cleaning staff and a few other dedicated, or desperate, employees remained. Around 8:30 p.m., Riley stopped by my cubicle on her way out. "Still here? You know Derek won't notice whether you left at 5 or midnight," she said, leaning against my desk. "I know, but I'll notice," I replied, organizing the final documents. "Besides, one day someone will recognize my work ethic." Riley gave me a sympathetic look. "You're either the most optimistic person I know or the most delusional. Either way, go home soon. Tomorrow's going to be chaos with the Horizon preparations." She wasn't wrong. Tuesday morning arrived with a flurry of activity. The creative team was making last-minute adjustments to their presentation, the account managers were rehearsing their pitch, and Derek was alternating between micromanaging everyone and disappearing for mysterious important calls. By lunchtime, my tasks were complete, the conference room was impeccably arranged, the research data compiled into clear, actionable insights, and the presentation materials printed and organized. As a final touch, I'd even created personalized folders for each of the Horizon executives expected to attend, with their names embossed on high-quality cardstock. "Samantha," Derek called as he passed my desk, barely slowing his stride. "Melissa from reception has a doctor's appointment. I need you to cover the front desk from 1 to 2. Make sure no one important is kept waiting." Of course. Despite all my preparation for the Horizon meeting, I wouldn't even be allowed to attend. Instead, I'd be answering phones and greeting couriers. I took a deep breath and reminded myself that this was temporary. One day I'd be the one leading presentations, not covering reception desks. "Sure, Derek," I replied with forced cheerfulness. "Happy to help." As I gathered my lunch to eat at the reception desk, I couldn't help but feel the familiar weight of invisibility settling over me. In the hierarchy of Maxwell and Brooks, I remained stubbornly at the bottom, watching others climb while I stayed firmly in place. What I didn't know was that sometimes being invisible puts you in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Wednesday morning was absolute chaos at Maxwell and Brooks. The Horizon Technologies meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m., and everyone was in overdrive mode. The creative team was making last-minute adjustments to their presentation boards, account executives were practicing their talking points in front of bathroom mirrors, and Derek was alternating between barking orders and disappearing into his office for mysterious urgent calls. I had been at my desk since 7 a.m., meticulously finalizing every detail for the meeting. The catering order was confirmed, the conference room arranged to perfection, and each presentation folder contained impeccably organized materials. Despite putting in more effort than anyone else on the preparation, I had been explicitly told that I wouldn't be attending the meeting. "We need to keep the numbers down," Derek explained dismissively. "Too many people in the room looks desperate. Besides, someone needs to handle the day-to-day operations while we're in the pitch." Translation: "You're not important enough to be seen." I swallowed my disappointment and focused on ensuring everything was perfect. If I couldn't be in the room, I would at least make sure that those who were had everything they needed to succeed. By noon, the meeting was in full swing, having started 30 minutes late because the Horizon executives were delayed in traffic. I had watched them arrive, 6 serious-looking men and women in expensive suits, ushered quickly into the conference room by a nervous-looking Derek. As promised, I found myself stationed at the reception desk at 1 p.m. Melissa, our regular receptionist, had left for her doctor's appointment with an apologetic smile and a half-eaten bag of pretzels for me. "Should be quiet," she assured me. "Everyone important is already here." I settled in, using the opportunity to catch up on emails while occasionally glancing at the security monitors that showed the building's entrance. The lobby of our building was impressive, all marble and glass with a security desk staffed by uniformed guards who directed visitors to the appropriate floors. At approximately 1:30 p.m., I noticed a woman enter the building. From the security monitor, I could see her speaking with the lobby security guard, who pointed toward the elevators. Something about her caught my attention, perhaps the way she carried herself with quiet confidence, or perhaps the stylish yet understated outfit she wore. Whatever it was, I found myself watching as she entered the elevator. A few minutes later, the elevator doors opened on our floor, and the same woman stepped out. She paused for a moment, looking around with a slightly uncertain expression. Our floor was confusing for first-time visitors. The reception desk was partially hidden around a corner, with multiple hallways leading in different directions. I stood up and approached her with a friendly smile. "Hi there. Welcome to Maxwell & Brooks. Can I help you find someone?" The woman looked at me but didn't respond immediately. After a moment, she made a gesture that I instantly recognized. She touched her ear and then moved her hand to her mouth while shaking her head slightly. The universal sign for "I'm deaf." Without hesitation, I switched to ASL, my hands forming the signs that had once been as natural to me as speaking. "Hello," I signed, my movements slightly rusty but still fluid. "Welcome to Maxwell & Brooks. My name is Sam. How can I help you today?" The change in her expression was immediate and profound. Her wisdom made me reflect on how often we try to separate our personal and professional selves, when in reality, our most authentic connections and contributions often come from the experiences that shaped us. Today, as I lead Parker Tech's highly successful campaign and continue building my team at Maxwell & Brooks, I'm reminded daily of the power of authentic communication. What began as a simple gesture, greeting a visitor in sign language, ultimately revealed my true potential and created space for others to bring their authentic selves to work as well. I've learned that leadership isn't about conforming to corporate hierarchies or traditional career paths. It's about recognizing the unique value you bring and finding the courage to share it, even when it doesn't fit neatly into a job description. Sometimes the very things that make us different are what make us invaluable. So I'm curious, have you ever had a skill or personal experience that unexpectedly became valuable in your professional life? Share your stories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey of finding success through authenticity, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share with anyone who might need this reminder. Your unique perspective matters more than you know. Thank you for watching, and remember that sometimes the most powerful career moves don't come from networking or degree programs, but from the genuine human connections we make when we bring our whole selves to work. Face lit up with surprise and relief, her shoulders relaxing visibly. She smiled and her hands began moving gracefully. "Thank you," she signed back. "My name is Gabriella. I'm here for the Horizon meeting, but I'm running late. My interpreter had an emergency and couldn't make it. I've been texting people all morning, but no one is responding." I nodded sympathetically. Office meetings were challenging enough for deaf individuals even with interpreters present. Without one, it would be nearly impossible to follow the fast-paced discussions and presentations. "I understand," I signed. "The meeting is already in progress, but I can take you there right away. Would you like me to let them know you need accommodation?" Gabriella looked relieved. "That would be helpful," she signed. "I can read lips reasonably well, but it's exhausting, especially in group settings." "I know exactly what you mean," I signed, thinking of my cousin Harper who had often expressed the same frustration. "I'm not a professional interpreter, but I'd be happy to help if they need someone to sign during the meeting." Her eyebrows raised in surprise. "You would do that? That's incredibly kind." I smiled and signed, "Of course. I learned ASL from my cousin. I don't get to use it much these days, so I'd actually enjoy the practice." As we walked toward the conference room, I explained that I worked as a marketing coordinator but wasn't originally scheduled to attend the meeting. Gabriella nodded, her eyes expressing gratitude that transcended language barriers. When we reached the conference room, I could see through the glass wall that Derek was in the middle of his presentation, gesturing enthusiastically at one of the display boards. I knocked gently and opened the door, immediately feeling all eyes turned toward us. "I apologize for the interruption," I said professionally. "Ms. Gabriella Parker has arrived for the meeting." Derek's presentation faltered, his expression shifting from annoyance at the interruption to confusion. "Parker?" he repeated, glancing at his meeting agenda. "I don't have a Parker on the list from Horizon." Before I could explain, one of the Horizon executives stood up. "Gabriella. We were worried you wouldn't make it." He turned to the room. "Everyone, this is Gabriella Parker, a technology consultant we've brought in to evaluate accessibility features." I quickly signed this information to Gabriella, who nodded and signed thank you before walking confidently into the room. Before following her, I addressed the group. "Ms. Parker is deaf," I explained, noticing several uncomfortable expressions appear around the table. "Her interpreter had an emergency and couldn't attend. Would it be helpful if I stayed to interpret? I'm fluent in American Sign Language." The Horizon executive looked relieved and nodded emphatically. Derek, however, appeared completely blindsided, his mouth slightly agape as he processed this unexpected turn of events. "You know sign language?" he asked, not bothering to hide his surprise. "Yes," I replied simply, not elaborating on my personal connection to the deaf community. "I'd be happy to interpret for the remainder of the meeting." Derek hesitated, clearly calculating whether having me in the room was worth the benefit of accommodating this unexpected visitor. Finally, he nodded stiffly. "Fine. Please tell Ms. Parker we're delighted she could join us, and we'll restart the presentation from the beginning." I interpreted this for Gabriella, who smiled graciously and took a seat. For the next hour and a half, I stood at the front of the room beside Derek, signing his entire presentation and the subsequent discussion. Though I was rusty at first, the movements came back to me quickly, my hands flowing more confidently as I fell back into the rhythm of interpretation. Throughout the meeting, I caught Gabriella watching me with thoughtful interest. When questions arose, I voiced her inquiries to the room and signed the responses back to her. Several times, she asked insightful questions about how our marketing strategies would accommodate deaf and hard of hearing users, questions that clearly hadn't been anticipated by our team. When the meeting finally concluded, Gabriella approached me while the others were gathering their materials. "Thank you," she signed, her expression genuine. "You saved me today. Most people would have just handed me a notepad or expected me to read lips for 2 hours." "Happy to help," I signed back. It was nice to use ASL again. I don't get many opportunities these days. She reached into her purse and handed me a business card. "I'd like to continue this conversation. Would you be open to that?" I nodded and accepted the card, noticing only that it had an elegant embossed logo I didn't recognize. Before I could examine it more closely, Derek appeared at my side, his professional smile firmly in place. "Ms. Parker, it was a pleasure having you join us today," he said loudly and slowly, an unfortunate but common reaction when people discover someone is deaf. I suppressed a cringe and signed his words to Gabriella, deliberately not matching his exaggerated speaking style. She smiled politely, thanked everyone through my interpretation, and departed with the Horizon team. As I returned to my desk, I tucked Gabriella's business card into my wallet, thinking it had been nice to use my ASL skills again but not expecting anything to come of it. I had no idea that this brief interaction had set in motion events that would completely transform my career. The next morning, the office was buzzing with energy following the Horizon meeting. Based on the animated conversations happening around the coffee machine, it had gone exceptionally well. I settled at my desk with my cold brew and began checking emails, curious but not expecting any acknowledgement of my unexpected contribution. "Did you hear about the mystery woman?" I overheard Tanya from the creative team asking Riley as they passed my cubicle. "You mean the deaf visitor?" "Sam mentioned she interpreted for her," Riley replied, giving me a quick wave as they continued down the hallway. Throughout the morning, snippets of conversation drifted my way. Apparently, the special visitor had made quite an impression on both the Maxwell and Brooks team and the Horizon executives. Several people mentioned her insightful questions and how she had approached the presentation from angles our team hadn't considered. Around 11 a.m., I was printing some documents when I overheard 2 account managers talking in the copy room. "I still can't believe no one recognized Gabriella Parker," one said, shaking her head in disbelief. She's practically a tech celebrity. I paused, my finger hovering over the printer button. I know. CEO of Parker Tech, pioneer in accessibility software, on the cover of Tech Innovators last month, the other replied. And she just walked into our office with no fanfare. Thank God someone knew sign language, or we would have looked completely unprepared. My stomach dropped. Gabriella Parker wasn't just a consultant brought in by Horizon, she was the CEO of Parker Tech, a company I now remembered reading about. They specialized in developing technology solutions for the deaf and hard of hearing community, from advanced hearing aids to revolutionary text-to-sign language translation software. And I had greeted her casually, like any other visitor, completely unaware of who she was. I returned to my desk in a daze, immediately searching for Parker Tech online. There she was, Gabriella Parker, featured prominently on the company website. The article described how she had founded the company after experiencing firsthand the limitations of existing technology for deaf individuals. Under her leadership, Parker Tech had grown from a small startup to a multi-million-dollar company at the forefront of accessibility innovation. And I had offered to interpret for her as casually as I might offer someone a cup of coffee. Hey, Earth to Sam. Riley appeared at my cubicle, waving a hand to get my attention. You've been staring at your screen for 5 minutes straight. What's so fascinating? I turned my monitor so she could see Gabriella's professional headshot on the Parker Tech website. This is the woman I interpreted for yesterday. Turns out she's kind of a big deal. Riley's eyes widened. Holy shit, that's Gabriella Parker? The Gabriella Parker? What was she doing here? Apparently, she came with the Horizon team, I explained. I had no idea who she was. I just saw someone who needed help and stepped in. Well, Derek's been strutting around all morning taking credit for the meeting's success, Riley informed me with an eye roll. He hasn't mentioned your contribution once, though I heard the Horizon people were impressed by the inclusive approach of having an ASL interpreter ready. I snorted. Inclusive approach? It was pure luck that I happened to know ASL and was covering reception when she arrived. That's Maxwell and Brooks for you, failing upward through sheer coincidence and calling it strategy, Riley quipped. Just then, my email notification chimed. I glanced at my inbox and froze. What? Riley asked, noticing my expression. You look like you've seen a ghost. It's an email from Parker, executive assistant at parkertech.com, I whispered. Subject line, meeting request from Gabriella Parker. Riley's eyes widened again. Open it. With slightly trembling fingers, I clicked on the email. Dear Samantha Wilson, *. On behalf of Gabriella Parker, CEO of Parker Tech, I would like to express our gratitude for your assistance yesterday at Maxwell and Brooks. Ms. Parker was particularly impressed by your ASL fluency and your willingness to step in without hesitation. Ms. Parker would like to meet with you privately to discuss a potential opportunity. Would you be available for lunch tomorrow at 1 p.m. at Ellison's on Michigan Avenue? Please let me know at your earliest convenience if this works with your schedule, or if you would prefer an alternative time or location. Best regards. Natalie Chen Executive Assistant to Gabriella Parker Parker Tech Incorporated Riley read the email over my shoulder and let out a low whistle. This is huge, Sam. Ellison's is one of the most exclusive restaurants in Chicago. People wait months for reservations there. But what opportunity could she possibly want to discuss? I wondered aloud. I just interpreted for an hour or so. Anyone with ASL knowledge could have done the same. Clearly she doesn't think so, Riley pointed out. You should definitely go. This could be the break you've been waiting for. I stared at the email, my mind racing with possibilities. Should I tell Derek about this meeting? As my supervisor, he might expect to be informed, especially if it involved a potential client. On the other hand, given his history of taking credit for others' work, telling him might result in him inserting himself into whatever opportunity Gabriella wanted to discuss. Don't tell Derek, Riley advised, seeming to read my thoughts. At least not until you know what this is about. For once, this is your accomplishment that he can't claim. Don't let him hijack it. After careful consideration, I replied to the email. Dear Ms. Chen, *. Thank you for your message. I would be delighted to meet with Ms. Parker tomorrow at 1:00 p.m. at Ellison's. Please let me know if there's anything I should prepare for this meeting, *. Best regards, *. Samantha Wilson, *. Marketing Coordinator, *. Maxwell and Brooks, *. For the remainder of the day, I struggled to focus on my regular tasks. My mind kept returning to the upcoming meeting, wondering what Gabriella Parker might want to discuss. Was it simply a thank you lunch? Or was there something more significant at play? That evening, I spent hours researching Parker Tech, wanting to be as informed as possible for my meeting with Gabriella. The company had been founded 7 years ago and had quickly established itself as a leader in accessibility technology. Their most recent project was an AI-powered app that translated spoken words into sign language in real time, technology that could potentially transform communication for deaf individuals worldwide. I also discovered that Parker Tech was planning to launch a major marketing campaign for their new line of products, which explained why Gabriella might have been meeting with Horizon Technologies, one of the leading tech manufacturers in the country. As I prepared for bed that night, I laid out my most professional outfit and rehearsed potential conversations in my head. Whatever opportunity Gabriella wanted to discuss, I was determined to make the most of it. After years of feeling invisible at Maxwell and Brooks, someone had finally noticed me, and not just anyone, but a pioneering CEO who had built her success on breaking barriers and challenging expectations. For the first time in a long while, I fell asleep feeling hopeful about my career prospects. I had no way of knowing just how dramatically things were about to change. The following day, I arrived at work with a mixture of excitement and anxiety churning in my stomach. I had chosen my most professional outfit, a navy blue pantsuit with a subtle pinstripe, paired with a cream blouse and my one pair of designer heels, splurges from my first bonus at Maxwell and Brooks. I wanted to look confident and capable for my lunch meeting with Gabriella Parker. The morning crawled by at an excruciating pace. I completed my regular tasks mechanically, my mind constantly drifting to the upcoming lunch. By noon, I could hardly sit still, checking my reflection in my compact mirror and mentally rehearsing what I might say. You look like you're about to jump out of your skin, Riley commented when she stopped by my desk. Nervous about the big meeting? Is it that obvious? I grimaced, smoothing my already smooth hair. Only to someone who knows you well, she assured me. Everyone else is too self-absorbed to notice. What's your game plan? I sighed. Listen more than I talk. Be professional. Don't make a fool of myself. Solid strategy, Riley nodded. Just be yourself, Sam. That's who impressed her in the first place. At 12:30, I quietly gathered my things and slipped out of the office, telling anyone who asked that I had a personal appointment. The spring air was crisp as I walked the few blocks to Ellison's, a high-end restaurant known for its exclusive clientele and month-long waiting list. The restaurant's exterior was understated, a simple awning over a door with frosted glass, but the interior revealed its true character. Warm lighting illuminated rich wooden paneling and white tablecloths. A smartly dressed host greeted me at the entrance. I'm meeting Gabriella Parker, I explained, trying to sound as though lunching with CEOs was a regular occurrence for me. The host's demeanor shifted subtly, becoming even more attentive. Of course, Ms. Wilson. Ms. Parker is already seated. Please follow me. He led me through the main dining area to a secluded corner table where Gabriella sat reviewing something on her tablet. When she noticed our approach, she set the device aside and stood to greet me. Samantha, she signed, her hands moving gracefully. Thank you for coming. Please, sit down. Thank you for inviting me, I signed back, settling into the chair across from her. And please, call me Sam. A waiter appeared almost instantly with water and menus. I noticed that Gabriella's menu was slightly different from mine, embossed with braille along the edges, I realized, for guests with both hearing and vision impairments. It was a thoughtful touch that spoke volumes about the restaurant's commitment to accessibility. I ordered a few appetizers already, Gabriella signed, indicating several small dishes that were being arranged on our table. I hope you don't mind. The chef's selection here is excellent. Not at all, I replied, still signing. Thank you. For the next several minutes, we engaged in light conversation as we looked over the menus and placed our orders. Gabriella asked about my background, and I shared a little about growing up with my deaf cousin Harper and how that experience had shaped my perspective. That explains your fluency, Gabriella signed, nodding thoughtfully. Most people who learn ASL for professional reasons never achieve the expressiveness you have. There's an authenticity to your signing that comes from personal connection. I felt my cheeks warm at the unexpected compliment. Thank you. Though I'm certainly rusty compared to when Harper and I were teenagers. After our main courses arrived, a delicate sea bass for Gabriella and mushroom risotto for me, she shifted the conversation toward the reason for our meeting. I imagine you're wondering why I wanted to speak with you today, she signed, her expression becoming more businesslike. I nodded, setting down my fork to keep my hands free for signing. I am curious, I admitted. I'll be direct, she continued. Parker Tech is preparing to launch a new line of products aimed at improving communication access for the deaf and hard of hearing community. This will be our largest launch to date, and we need a marketing partner who truly understands our mission and our users. I nodded again, following her explanation while wondering how this connected to me. We've been considering several agencies, including Maxwell and Brooks, Gabriella signed. Yesterday's meeting was actually part of our evaluation process. I wanted to see how your firm approached the concept of accessibility. This revelation surprised me. I had assumed Gabriella was there with Horizon Technologies, not as a potential client herself. When I arrived and found myself without an interpreter, I expected the usual awkwardness, being handed a notepad, asked to read lips, or worse, being spoken to as though I were a child, she continued, a flicker of familiar frustration crossing her face. Instead, I met you, someone who immediately adapted to my needs without making a big show of it. That's exactly the kind of authentic understanding we want for our campaign. She paused, taking a sip of water before continuing. Sam, I'd like you to lead the creative pitch for the Parker Tech account. I froze, certain I had misunderstood. I'm sorry, could you sign that again? I asked, my hand slightly shaky. Gabriella smiled. I want you to lead the creative pitch for our account. You have a personal connection to the deaf community, you clearly understand authentic communication, and you showed initiative and adaptability yesterday. Those are the qualities we're looking for in our marketing partner. My mind raced. This was an incredible opportunity, exactly the kind of breakthrough I'd been hoping for, but it was also completely out of line with my position at Maxwell and Brooks. I'm honored, I signed carefully, but I should clarify that I'm not a creative director at Maxwell and Brooks. I'm a marketing coordinator. My supervisor, Derek Fletcher, leads all major client pitches. Gabriella's expression remained unchanged. I'm aware of your position, Sam. I'm also aware that you have the skills and perspective we need. If Maxwell and Brooks wants our business, we want you leading the creative direction. But that's not how it works at our firm, I explained, feeling a mixture of excitement and panic. There's a hierarchy, protocols. Business hierarchies can be flexible when 8-figure contracts are involved, Gabriella interrupted, her signing sharp and decisive. Parker Tech's marketing budget for this launch is $15 million. I believe that gives us some leverage in requesting specific talent. I nearly choked on my water. $15 million was one of the largest accounts Maxwell and Brooks had ever pursued. The commission alone would be massive. I understand your concern, Gabriella continued more gently. Corporate politics can be challenging. But I built my company by recognizing talent regardless of title or tenure. You have something that can't be taught, genuine understanding and respect for the deaf community. That's what we need for this campaign. My mind whirled with possibilities and complications. This opportunity could catapult my career forward by years, but it could also create significant tension with Derek and potentially the entire creative department. What exactly would this involve? I asked, wanting to understand the full picture before committing to anything. We'd want you to lead the creative pitch presentation, develop the campaign strategy, and oversee implementation if Maxwell and Brooks wins the account, Gabriella explained. Essentially, you'd be functioning as the creative director for our project, regardless of your official title. I took a deep breath, considering the implications. And if Maxwell and Brooks isn't comfortable with this arrangement? Gabriella's expression was neutral, but her signing was clear. Then we'll find an agency that is. We're considering 3 other firms, all of whom are eager for our business. The message was unmistakable. This was a package deal. If Maxwell and Brooks wanted the ParkerTech account, they would need to accept me as the lead. This is an incredible opportunity, I signed finally. And I believe I could do an excellent job for ParkerTech. But I need to be honest, this will cause significant disruption at Maxwell and Brooks. Derek has been the creative director for 5 years, and he's never been asked to step aside for a junior team member. Corporate egos can be delicate, Gabriella acknowledged with a small smile. But successful businesses adapt to client needs. I'm prepared to have this conversation with your executive team if necessary. As our lunch concluded, Gabriella handed me a sleek folder containing information about ParkerTech's upcoming product line and marketing objectives. Review this and let me know your thoughts by Monday, she signed. Our formal RFP will be sent to Maxwell and Brooks tomorrow, with specific language requesting you as creative lead. Walking back to the office, I felt as though I was floating above the sidewalk. This was the opportunity one had been waiting for, a chance to prove myself, to showcase my abilities, to finally step out of the shadows and into a leadership role. But mixed with the exhilaration was a heavy dose of anxiety. How would Derek react? Would the company support me or view me as overstepping my position? Would my colleagues resent me? As I rode the elevator up to our floor, I resolved to handle this situation as professionally as possible. I would inform my superiors about the meeting with Gabriella, explain the situation objectively, and let them decide how to proceed. If Maxwell and Brooks valued the potential account enough, they would find a way to make it work. What I didn't realize was that corporate politics were about to become far more complicated than I had anticipated. The battle lines were being drawn, and I was standing directly in the crossfire. I had barely stepped back into the office when Lisa, the executive assistant to James Maxwell himself, appeared at my cubicle. "There you are, Samantha," she said, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Maxwell would like to see you in the executive conference room immediately." My stomach dropped. James Maxwell? The CEO? Wants to see me? Lisa nodded. Yes. Derek Fletcher and several other executives are already there. This couldn't be good. Had they somehow found out about my lunch with Gabriella Parker already? I hadn't told anyone except Riley, and she would never betray my confidence. Do you know what this is about? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I believe it concerns ParkerTech, Lisa replied, confirming my fears. They've just submitted an RFP with some unusual specifications. I took a deep breath and smoothed my jacket, my mind racing. The RFP had arrived faster than expected. Gabriella must have had it prepared and ready to send even before our lunch. Which meant the executives had already seen the requirement that I lead the creative pitch. I'll be right there, I told Lisa, quickly gathering my notebook and the folder Gabriella had given me. As Lisa walked away, Riley appeared, her expression anxious. What's going on? She whispered. Derek's been stomping around like a bull for the last 20 minutes, and now you've been summoned to Mount Olympus? The ParkerTech RFP came in, I explained quietly. And apparently it specifically requests that I lead the creative pitch. Riley's eyes widened. Holy shit. That was fast. Are you ready for this? Not really, I admitted. But I don't have much choice. Good luck, she said, giving my arm a supportive squeeze. Remember, you deserve this opportunity. Don't let them intimidate you. The executive conference room was on the top floor of our building, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Chicago. Under different circumstances, I might have appreciated the impressive setting. Today, it felt like walking into a lion's den. Seated around the massive mahogany table were James Maxwell, CEO and co-founder of the agency, Derek Fletcher, my direct supervisor, Victoria Adams, Chief Operating Officer, and two senior creative directors from other departments. All eyes turned to me as I entered. Samantha, thank you for joining us, James said, his tone neutral but his expression intense. Though in his 60s, James Maxwell maintained the sharp focus and commanding presence that had built Maxwell and Brooks into one of Chicago's premier agencies. Please, have a seat. I took the only empty chair, directly across from Derek, whose face was flushed with what I recognized as barely contained anger. I believe you know why we've called you here, James continued, tapping a folder in front of him. We've received an RFP from Parker Tech Inc. That contains some unusual requirements, specifically, that you, a marketing coordinator, should lead the creative pitch and oversee their account if we win it. He paused, studying me carefully. What we'd like to understand is how this came about. I took a deep breath, determined to remain professional despite my racing heart. Yesterday, I interpreted for Gabriella Parker, CEO of Parker Tech, during the Horizon Technologies meeting. She's deaf, and her interpreter couldn't make it. Today, she invited me to lunch to discuss a potential opportunity with Parker Tech. And you didn't think to inform your supervisor about this meeting? Derek interrupted, his voice tight with anger. The invitation came late yesterday afternoon, I explained calmly. I was planning to brief you after learning what Ms. Parker wanted to discuss. How convenient, Derek scoffed. And somehow during this lunch, you convinced her to demand that you, not our experienced creative team, should lead their $15 million campaign? I didn't convince her of anything, I replied, maintaining eye contact despite my discomfort. Ms. Parker was impressed by my understanding of deaf culture and my ability to communicate in ASL. Those qualities are important to her for this particular campaign, which focuses on products for the deaf community. Victoria Adams leaned forward. Samantha, while your sign language skills are clearly valuable, leading a major campaign requires extensive experience in creative direction, client management, and team leadership. Skills that, frankly, you haven't demonstrated in your current role. With all due respect, Ms. Adams, I countered, I haven't had the opportunity to demonstrate those skills. But I do have them, along with something equally valuable, authentic personal experience with the deaf community. I learned ASL growing up with my deaf cousin, which gives me insights into the target audience that others at this agency don't have. ASL is just a skill, Samantha, Derek interrupted again, his tone dismissive. A hobby, essentially. Anyone can learn it. What matters for this campaign is marketing expertise, which is why I should be leading it. Something in his dismissive tone, reducing my years of learning ASL and understanding deaf culture to a hobby, ignited a spark of anger within me. Before I could respond, James Maxwell raised his hand. Actually, Derek, he said quietly, American Sign Language is a complex linguistic system with its own grammar, syntax, and cultural context. It's not something you pick up in a weekend seminar. The room fell silent. James turned to me with an evaluating gaze. Samantha, could you demonstrate some sign language for us? Perhaps explain what makes it unique as a communication method? Surprised by the request but eager to prove my point, I nodded and stood up. For the next few minutes, I explained and demonstrated basic ASL concepts, how facial expressions and body language are grammatical elements, how the spatial positioning of signs creates meaning, and how understanding deaf culture is essential to effective communication. For example, I explained, my hands forming the signs as I spoke, there are certain conversation norms in deaf culture that differ from hearing culture. Making direct eye contact is not considered rude but necessary. Tapping someone's shoulder to get their attention is perfectly acceptable. These cultural nuances are critical when marketing to the deaf community. As I concluded my impromptu lesson, I noticed that most of the executives were watching with genuine interest. Derek, however, looked increasingly agitated. "This is all very fascinating," he said sarcastically, "but it doesn't change the fact that Samantha lacks the experience to lead a major campaign. She's been with us for only 3 years and has never led even a minor pitch. This is clearly a ploy to leapfrog over more qualified team members." "It wasn't my idea, Derek," I said firmly. "Gabriella Parker specifically requested me based on what she observed yesterday. And from what she explained, Parker Tech will take their business elsewhere if their request isn't honored." "So we're being blackmailed," Derek snapped. "And you're perfectly comfortable with that arrangement?" "That's enough, Derek," James Maxwell said sharply. "This is business, not personal. If a $15 million client has specific requirements, we consider them objectively." Derek's face flushed darker. "James, you can't seriously be considering this. It undermines the entire creative department structure. What message does it send when we allow a junior staff member to bypass all the normal channels based on a client's whim?" "It sends the message that we're adaptable and client-focused," Victoria suggested, her business instincts clearly engaged. "Besides, we could structure this as a special project team, with Samantha leading creative direction specifically for Parker Tech while maintaining our normal hierarchy for other accounts." Derek shook his head adamantly. "This is ridiculous. Samantha has zero experience leading creative strategy. She's a coordinator, for God's sake. Her job is to support the creative team, not lead it." As Derek continued his protests, I noticed James Maxwell watching me with a thoughtful expression. When Derek finally paused for breath, James leaned forward. "Samantha," he said quietly, "do you believe you can do this job? Not just the ASL component, but the actual creative direction for a major campaign?" Put on the spot, I took a moment to consider my answer carefully. This wasn't the time for false modesty or overconfidence. "Yes, Mr. Maxwell, I do," I said with conviction. "I've been developing campaign concepts and creative strategies for 3 years, even though they've rarely been acknowledged or implemented. I understand Parker Tech's target audience in a way that others here don't. And I'm willing to work harder than anyone else to prove myself worthy of this opportunity." Derek made a dismissive sound. "Everyone thinks they can do their boss's job until they actually have to do it. Trust me, she's not ready." James Maxwell's gaze remained on me, as though weighing my words against Derek's assessment. Then, unexpectedly, he signed something to me, a brief sequence of fluid hand movements that I recognized immediately. Without hesitation, I signed back the appropriate response, then added, "I didn't realize you knew ASL, Mr. Maxwell." A slight smile crossed his face as he signed again, this time more extensively. I followed his signs, my surprise growing as we engaged in a brief signed conversation that no one else in the room could understand. Finally, James turned to the group, switching back to spoken English. "I learned American Sign Language 30 years ago when my college roommate's sister came to live with us. She was deaf, and I wanted to make her feel welcome." He looked directly at Derek. "It's not a hobby, Derek. It's a language and a cultural competency that, as it happens, may be exactly what we need for this particular client." The room was silent as everyone processed this unexpected revelation. Furthermore, James continued, "I happened to be in the lobby yesterday when Samantha greeted Ms. Parker. I witnessed their interaction firsthand. What I saw wasn't just language proficiency, it was authentic human connection and initiative. Qualities we claim to value at this agency." Derek's expression shifted from anger to shock. "You saw them yesterday? Why didn't you say something?" "Because I wanted to observe without interfering," James replied calmly. "And what I observed impressed me." He turned back to me. "Samantha, I believe you have potential that hasn't been fully recognized here. This opportunity with Parker Tech could be a chance to demonstrate that potential. However, leading a major campaign is indeed challenging, especially for someone without prior experience in that role." He looked around the table. Here's what I propose. Samantha will lead the creative direction for the Parker Tech pitch, with Derek serving as executive supervisor. They will work together, but Samantha will have primary responsibility for the creative concept and client communications. Derek started to protest, but James held up a hand to silence him. This is not open for debate, Derek. Parker Tech has made their requirements clear, and we're going to meet them while ensuring the work receives appropriate oversight. If you can't support this arrangement, we can discuss alternative staffing options. The threat was subtle but clear. Either Derek could work with me, or he could be removed from the project entirely. After a tense moment, Derek nodded stiffly. Fine. But I want it on record that I think this is a mistake. Noted, James said dryly. He turned to me. Samantha, are you prepared to take on this responsibility? It will require exceptional effort and focus. Yes, sir, I replied without hesitation. I won't let you or the agency down. Good. Then I expect both of you to put aside your personal feelings and deliver the best possible work for this client. James gathered his papers, signaling the end of the meeting. Victoria will work with HR to adjust job titles and compensation appropriately for the duration of this project. As everyone stood to leave, James added, Samantha, please stay for a moment. Once the others had filed out, James gestured for me to sit again. That wasn't easy for you, he observed. No, sir, I admitted. But I appreciate the opportunity. Opportunity comes with responsibility, he replied. Derek is right about one thing, you haven't led a major campaign before. There will be challenges you haven't anticipated. I understand, I said. I'm prepared to work harder than I ever have. James studied me for a moment. I've watched you for 3 years, Samantha. You're intelligent, creative, and more capable than your position has allowed you to demonstrate. But you've also been invisible, doing your work well but never finding a way to truly stand out. His assessment was so accurate it was almost uncomfortable. Sometimes, he continued, opportunity finds us in unexpected ways. The question is whether we're prepared to seize it when it does. He stood up, signaling our conversation was concluding. Don't make me regret my decision. I won't, I promised, rising to my feet. Thank you for believing in me. As I left the executive conference room, I felt both exhilarated and terrified. I had just been handed the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to prove myself at the highest level. But I had also made a powerful enemy in Derek, and the expectations placed on me were enormous. Walking back to my desk, I realized that everything had changed in the span of 24 hours. Yesterday, I was an overlooked marketing coordinator. Today, I was leading a $15 million campaign pitch. The real work was just beginning. The following Monday, I arrived at the office at 6:30 a.m., determined to get a head start on my new responsibilities. The building was nearly empty, with only the cleaning staff and a few early risers present. I had spent the entire weekend reviewing the materials Gabriella had provided, researching Parker Tech's products and competitors, and developing preliminary concepts for their campaign. I had expected to find my cubicle unchanged, but to my surprise, I discovered that I had been moved over the weekend. A small office, previously used for storage, had been cleared out and set up with a desk, computer, and a nameplate that read Samantha Wilson, Project Creative Director. The promotion wasn't permanent, but the title acknowledged my role on the Parker Tech account. As I was setting up my workspace, my phone pinged with an email from Victoria Adams. Samantha *. The Parker Tech project team has been assembled and will meet in conference room B at 9 a.m. As discussed, you will lead creative direction with Derek providing executive oversight. I've assigned Riley Matthews from account management to support you, along with Michael Chen from design and Tara Washington from content development *. Budget details and timeline expectations are attached. We have 3 weeks to develop our pitch. Parker Tech has made it clear they have high expectations *. Good luck *. Victoria Adams *. COO, Maxwell and Brooks *. I read the email twice, my anxiety growing. This was really happening. I was being given a team and actual authority. And our first meeting was in less than 3 hours. By 8:45 a.m., I had prepared a preliminary presentation outlining what we knew about Parker Tech, their target audience, and some initial creative directions we might explore. As I walked to conference room B, Riley intercepted me in the hallway. "Project Creative Director, huh," she said with a grin. "Moving up in the world." Temporarily, I reminded her, though I couldn't help returning her smile. "I still can't believe this is happening." Riley's expression became more serious. "Just a heads up, Derek's been on a rampage since the meeting on Friday. He's been telling anyone who'll listen that you're in over your head and this project is doomed to fail." "Great," I sighed. "That's exactly the supportive environment I need right now." "Ignore him," Riley advised. "Focus on the work and proving him wrong. That's the best revenge." When we entered the conference room, Michael and Tara were already seated, looking slightly uncomfortable. Derek stood by the window, his back to the room, talking loudly on his phone about inexperience and inevitable failure. It was clearly for my benefit. I refused to let him rattle me. Setting my materials on the table, I greeted Michael and Tara warmly. "Thank you both for joining this project team," I said. "I know this is an unusual situation, but I'm excited to work with you on this campaign." Michael, a talented graphic designer I'd collaborated with occasionally, gave me an encouraging smile. "Your ASL skills are pretty impressive, Sam. I saw the video from the meeting." "Video?" I asked, confused. "Oh yeah, someone recorded you interpreting for Gabriella Parker," Tara explained. "It's been circulating around the office. Pretty cool to see." Before I could process this information, Derek ended his call and turned to face us, his expression stern. "Let's get something straight," he announced without preamble. "This arrangement is temporary and highly irregular. I'll be monitoring everything closely and stepping in when necessary. Any final decisions will require my approval." I felt the team's eyes shift between Derek and me, waiting to see how I would respond. This was my first test as a leader, establishing my authority while maintaining professionalism. "Thank you for clarifying, Derek," I said calmly. "As Victoria outlined, you're providing executive oversight while I'm leading creative direction. I welcome your experience and insights, and I hope we can collaborate effectively for the benefit of the agency and the client." Derek seemed taken aback by my composed response. He had clearly expected me to be intimidated or defensive. "Well, good," he said, somewhat deflated. "Let's see what you've got." For the next hour, I presented my research on Parker Tech and outlined potential creative approaches for their campaign. I emphasized the unique challenges of marketing to the deaf and hard of hearing community, drawing on my personal experiences with my cousin Harper. Traditional marketing relies heavily on audio cues, jingles, voiceovers, even the emotional impact of tone and pace, I explained. We need to rethink these approaches completely, focusing on visual storytelling that resonates with deaf audiences without feeling patronizing or tokenistic. As I spoke, I noticed the team becoming increasingly engaged. Even Derek, despite his initial hostility, was paying close attention and occasionally making notes. Parker Tech's new product line includes advanced hearing aids, text-to-sign language translation software, and vibration-based notification systems, I continued. But what they're really selling is independence and connection, the ability for deaf individuals to navigate the hearing world on their own terms. "That's powerful," Riley commented. "We could center the campaign around authentic stories of connection, moments where these products break down barriers between deaf and hearing individuals." "Exactly," I agreed enthusiastically. "And we need to ensure these stories are told from the perspective of deaf users, not hearing observers. That means involving deaf creators in our content development process." Derek frowned. "That sounds complicated and expensive. Most agencies just hire actors to pretend to be deaf." "Which is exactly why deaf consumers find most marketing campaigns inauthentic," I countered. Parker Tech built their brand on genuine understanding of deaf experiences. Their marketing should reflect that same authenticity. To my surprise, Tara nodded in agreement. Sam's right. My brother has a hearing impairment, and he can spot fake representation instantly. It's actually offensive. The meeting continued with increasingly productive discussion. By the end, we had outlined a preliminary strategy and assigned initial tasks. Derek remained skeptical but less openly hostile. As everyone gathered their materials to leave, I addressed the team one final time. I know this project has an unusual structure, but I believe we have an opportunity to create something truly innovative. I'm open to all your ideas, concerns, and feedback. My door is always open. Derek was the last to leave, pausing at the doorway. You did better than I expected, Samantha, he admitted grudgingly. But don't get comfortable. Leading one meeting is nothing compared to managing an entire campaign development process. I appreciate your honesty, Derek, I replied. And I hope to earn your respect through the quality of my work. He didn't respond, simply nodding before walking away. Over the next 2 weeks, our team fell into an intense work rhythm. Days began early and ended late as we developed our pitch. I spent hours researching the deaf community's media consumption patterns, connecting with deaf influencers to gather insights, and working with Michael to develop visuals that would resonate with both deaf and hearing audiences. The concept we ultimately developed centered around the theme Bridging Worlds, showcasing how Parker Tech's products created meaningful connections between deaf and hearing individuals. Each advertisement would feature authentic stories from deaf users, told primarily through visual means with minimal reliance on sound or captions. Throughout this process, I encountered obstacles that tested my leadership abilities. Resource constraints forced difficult choices about where to allocate our limited budget. Creative disagreements within the team required thoughtful mediation. And Derek continued his subtle undermining, questioning my decisions in team meetings and sometimes countermanding my directives when I wasn't present. After one particularly frustrating incident where Derek had redirected Michael's design work without consulting me, Riley found me working late in my office, clearly upset. Don't let him get to you, she advised, perching on the edge of my desk. That's exactly what he wants. It's not just Derek, I admitted, rubbing my tired eyes. It's everything. The pressure, the deadlines, the politics. I'm starting to understand why creative directors always look stressed. Riley laughed. Welcome to leadership. It's not just about having good ideas, it's about shepherding those ideas through a minefield of egos, budgets, and corporate BS. How am I doing, honestly? I asked, suddenly vulnerable. Am I in over my head like Derek says? Are you kidding? You're crushing it, Riley assured me. The team respects you, the work is strong, and even Victoria mentioned yesterday that she's impressed with your progress. Her words gave me a much-needed boost of confidence. Thanks, Riley. I needed to hear that. The following day, I received an unexpected visitor. Gabriella Parker herself appeared at my office door, accompanied by her interpreter. Hope I'm not interrupting, she signed, her interpreter voicing her words for the benefit of anyone nearby. Not at all, I signed back, standing to welcome her. This is a wonderful surprise. Gabriella explained that she was in the building for meetings with other departments and wanted to check on our progress. For the next hour, I walked her through our developing campaign concept, signing directly to her while her interpreter occasionally clarified technical terms. This is exactly the approach we hoped for, Gabriella signed, her expression pleased. You understand what we're trying to achieve in a way the other agencies don't. I can't take all the credit, I replied honestly. The team has been incredible. But they needed your perspective to guide them, Gabriella observed. That's what leadership is, helping others see what they might otherwise miss. As she was preparing to leave, Gabriella paused. How are you handling the politics? She asked, her sign subtle and discreet. I hesitated, unsure how to respond without seeming unprofessional. It's challenging, I finally admitted. Not everyone supported my appointment to this role. Gabriella nodded knowingly. I faced similar resistance when I started Parker Tech. People questioned whether a deaf woman could lead a technology company. Her signs became more emphatic. Prove them wrong not by arguing, but by excelling. Success is the most powerful response to doubt. After she left, I felt newly energized and focused. The following days were our most productive yet. Tara developed compelling copy that captured the emotional impact of Parker Tech's products without relying on sound-based metaphors. Michael created stunning visuals that incorporated ASL hand shapes into the design elements. Riley coordinated with production to develop a presentation that would impress both deaf and hearing executives. Even Derek began to engage more constructively, offering genuinely helpful suggestions for strengthening our strategic approach. I couldn't tell if he was finally accepting my leadership or simply ensuring he could claim credit if we succeeded, but I welcomed the improved collaboration regardless. 3 days before our pitch presentation, we conducted a dry run for Victoria and several other executives. I delivered the entire presentation, occasionally signing key concepts alongside my verbal explanation to demonstrate how our campaign would bridge deaf and hearing audiences. When I finished, the room was silent for a moment before Victoria spoke. "I've overseen hundreds of pitch preparations in my career," she said thoughtfully. "This is among the most innovative and authentic approaches I've seen. Well done, Samantha and team." Her praise sent a wave of relief and pride through me. We were on the right track. That evening, as I was preparing to leave after another long day, James Maxwell appeared at my office door. "Got a minute?" he asked. "Of course," I replied, quickly clearing space for him to sit. "I wanted to check in before the big presentation," he said, settling into the chair across from me. "Victoria gave me glowing reports about your progress." "The team has been incredible," I said. "Even Derek has been more supportive recently." James smiled slightly. "Derek is many things, but stupid isn't one of them. He recognizes good work when he sees it, even if his pride makes it difficult to acknowledge." He paused, studying me thoughtfully. "How has this experience been for you, Samantha?" "Challenging, I imagine." "Extremely," I admitted. "But also incredibly rewarding. I've learned more in these 3 weeks than in the past 3 years." "That's often how growth works," James observed. "We stagnate in comfort and thrive in challenge." He leaned forward. "Whatever happens with the Parker Tech pitch, you've proven yourself capable of far more than your previous position allowed. Remember that." His words stayed with me as our team made final preparations for the presentation. The night before the big day, I could barely sleep, my mind cycling through all the potential problems and last-minute adjustments. But underneath the anxiety was a newfound confidence. We had created something special, something that honored the deaf community while showcasing Parker Tech's innovations effectively. Win or lose, I was proud of what we had accomplished and the leader I was becoming in the process. The morning of the presentation arrived with a mixture of sunshine and spring showers, fitting weather for a day that felt both promising and uncertain. I had barely slept, reviewing our presentation materials until well past midnight before forcing myself to get a few hours of rest. Despite my exhaustion, adrenaline had me wide awake and at the office by 6 a.m. for final preparations. Our team gradually assembled in the main conference room, each member showing signs of the intense 3-week sprint we'd endured. Michael arrived with dark circles under his eyes but a proud smile as he arranged the visual displays. Tara nervously rehearsed key talking points under her breath. Riley methodically checked and double-checked our presentation materials, ensuring everything was perfectly organized. Even Derek appeared focused and professional, his earlier hostility replaced by a businesslike determination to succeed. "How are you feeling?" Riley asked quietly as we arranged the conference room for optimal presentation flow. "Like I might throw up," I admitted with a nervous laugh. "But also strangely calm. We've done everything we possibly can." Riley squeezed my arm supportively. "You've got this, Sam. We all believe in you." That simple vote of confidence meant more than she could know. At precisely 10 a.m., Victoria escorted Gabriella Parker and her team into the conference room. Gabriella was accompanied by her interpreter, Parker Tech's Chief Marketing Officer, their head of product development, and 2 other executives. James Maxwell and several senior partners from Maxwell and Brooks also joined, taking seats along the back wall. The pressure was immense, but as I stepped forward to begin, I caught Gabriella's eye. She gave me a subtle nod of encouragement, and suddenly, my nervousness transformed into determination. This wasn't just a presentation, it was a chance to bridge 2 worlds I deeply cared about, marketing and deaf culture. "Good morning, everyone," I began, simultaneously signing as I spoke. "Thank you for the opportunity to present our campaign concept for ParkerTech's groundbreaking new product line." For the next hour, our team delivered a presentation that seamlessly blended traditional marketing strategies with deaf-centered design principles. I moved fluidly between speaking and signing, creating an accessible experience for everyone in the room. We presented our Bridging Worlds campaign concept, showcasing how ParkerTech's products could create meaningful connections between deaf and hearing individuals without erasing deaf identity or culture. Our mock advertisements featured authentic stories from deaf users, told primarily through visual means with minimal reliance on sound. Traditional marketing often treats deafness as a condition to overcome, I explained, my hands forming the signs alongside my words. Our approach celebrates deaf culture while highlighting how ParkerTech's innovations facilitate communication across different experiences. Michael presented our visual strategy, which incorporated ASL hand shapes subtly into design elements. Tara showcased copy that avoided sound-based metaphors and instead emphasized connection and understanding. Riley detailed our comprehensive media strategy, which prioritized platforms popular within the deaf community. Throughout the presentation, I watched Gabriella's expression carefully. She remained professionally neutral, occasionally asking insightful questions through her interpreter. The ParkerTech executives took extensive notes, but their poker faces revealed little about their reactions. For the finale, we unveiled something I had developed in secret with Michael's help, a brief video advertisement prototype. The minute-long clip showed a young deaf professional navigating a business meeting using ParkerTech's translation software, the technology working seamlessly in the background while the focus remained on human connection. Most strikingly, the entire video had no sound, forcing hearing viewers to experience it the way a deaf person might, with rich visual storytelling compensating for the absence of audio. As the video ended, the room remained silent for several seconds. Then, unexpectedly, Gabriella stood up and began signing rapidly, her expression animated with excitement. Her interpreter quickly translated. "This is exactly what we've been looking for. You've captured the essence of our mission without falling into the usual traps of inspiration porn or technical showcase. This campaign speaks to deaf individuals as consumers with agency, not patients with problems to solve." The ParkerTech CMO nodded in agreement. "The approach is fresh, authentic, and strategically sound. I particularly appreciate how you've centered deaf experiences without alienating hearing audiences." What followed was nearly an hour of detailed discussion, with the ParkerTech team asking probing questions about implementation, metrics, and scalability. Throughout this conversation, I found myself speaking with a confidence I hadn't known I possessed, drawing on both my marketing knowledge and my personal understanding of deaf culture. Finally, Gabriella stood, signaling the end of the meeting. "We have 2 more agencies to hear from this week," she signed, her interpreter voicing the translation. "But I want to be transparent, you've set an extremely high bar. This is precisely the kind of innovative, authentic approach we hoped for when we started this process." As the ParkerTech team gathered their materials to leave, Gabriella approached me directly. "Whatever happens with the official decision," she signed privately, "you should be very proud of what you've accomplished here. This is how representation should be done." After they departed, the conference room erupted in excited chatter. Victoria was beaming, several executives were congratulating team members, and even Derek looked grudgingly impressed. James Maxwell approached me with a rare smile. "Exceptional work, Samantha. Regardless of whether we win this account, you've demonstrated the kind of leadership and innovation we value at Maxwell and Brooks." The following 3 days were among the longest of my life. We received no immediate feedback from ParkerTech, and each hour of silence felt like an eternity. I threw myself into other work, trying not to obsess over analyzing every moment of the presentation for potential flaws. On Friday afternoon, as I was preparing to leave for the weekend, my phone rang with an unknown number. "Samantha Wilson speaking," I answered, trying to sound professional despite my fatigue. "Sam, it's Gabriella Parker," came the voice of her interpreter. "Gabriella would like to speak with you." My heart raced as I heard Gabriella's voice in the background. The interpreter continued, "We've completed our review process of all agency pitches. The decision was unanimous. Maxwell and Brooks will be Parker Tech's new agency of record, with you leading the creative team." I almost dropped the phone. "That's incredible news. Thank you so much for your confidence in us. The contract will be $15 million for the first year, with option to renew," the interpreter continued, translating Gabriella's words. "We'd like to begin implementation as soon as possible." After confirming a few details and scheduling a kickoff meeting for the following week, I ended the call in a state of disbelief. We had done it. My first campaign pitch as creative lead, and we had landed one of the largest accounts in the agency's history. I immediately went to Victoria's office to share the news. Her face lit up as I told her, and she immediately called James to join us. "This calls for celebration," James declared, pulling a bottle of champagne from his office bar. $15 million, that's the largest new account we've secured this year. As word spread throughout the office, colleagues stopped by to offer congratulations. Even people who had barely acknowledged my existence before were suddenly interested in chatting. The power of success to change perceptions was both amusing and slightly disheartening. Riley burst into Victoria's office, having heard the news. "I knew you could do it," she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug. "Project creative director to actual creative director in 3 weeks, that has to be some kind of record." I froze. "What do you mean, actual creative director?" Victoria and James exchanged looks. "We were going to discuss this on Monday," James explained, "but since it's come up, yes, we'd like to offer you a permanent promotion to creative director, heading a new division focused on inclusive marketing campaigns." "This project demonstrated a significant gap in our agency's capabilities," Victoria added. "With the growing emphasis on accessibility and representation across all industries, we need someone who understands how to market authentically to diverse audiences. You've proven you have that understanding." I was speechless, overwhelmed by this unexpected development. 3 weeks ago, I had been an overlooked marketing coordinator. Now I was being offered one of the most coveted positions in the agency. As the celebration continued around me, I noticed Derek standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable. After a moment's hesitation, he approached me. "Congratulations," he said, extending his hand. The Parker Tech pitch was impressive. Coming from Derek, this was high praise indeed. "Thank you," I replied, shaking his hand. "Your guidance throughout the process was valuable." He nodded, a flicker of something like respect in his eyes. "I still think you got lucky with the ASL connection, but what you did with that luck, the campaign concept, the team management, that wasn't luck. That was skill." It was perhaps the most genuine thing Derek had ever said to me, and I appreciated it more than I could express. The following weeks were a whirlwind of transitions. I moved into a proper office, assembled my team for the Parker Tech account, and began the process of establishing the new inclusive marketing division. Gabriella became not just a client but a friend and mentor, offering guidance as I navigated my new leadership role. Most surprisingly, my success with Parker Tech inspired others at Maxwell and Brooks to be more open about their own diverse backgrounds and experiences. Michael revealed that his sister was autistic, which had shaped his visual communication style. Another colleague shared his experience as a first-generation immigrant, offering insights into multicultural marketing approaches. Gradually, our agency began to recognize the value of diverse perspectives in creating authentic campaigns. 3 months after the Parker Tech presentation, I was invited to speak at a marketing conference about inclusive advertising strategies. Standing at the podium, looking out at hundreds of industry professionals, I reflected on the journey that had brought me there. "My story begins with a simple human connection," I told the audience. A moment when I greeted a visitor in sign language, not knowing that the CEO was watching. But the real lesson isn't about being in the right place at the right time. It's about bringing your authentic self and unique perspectives to your work, even when they don't seem immediately valuable in a corporate context. I continued, sharing the challenges and triumphs of the ParkerTech campaign. True innovation in marketing doesn't come from following established playbooks. It comes from embracing diverse viewpoints, challenging assumptions, and centering authentic human experiences. Sometimes the very qualities that make you feel like an outsider are precisely what enable you to see opportunities others miss. As I concluded my speech to enthusiastic applause, I thought about how much had changed in such a short time. The skills I had developed for deeply personal reasons, learning ASL to communicate with my cousin, had ultimately opened professional doors I never imagined possible. That evening, I called Harper via video chat to share my experiences at the conference. As we signed back and forth, laughing about how our childhood conversations had somehow led to my career breakthrough, I felt profound gratitude for the journey. "Remember when we were kids," Harper signed, "and you learned ASL just so we could share secrets that no one else understood?" I nodded, smiling at the memory. And now that secret language has changed my entire career. It was never about the language, Harper signed thoughtfully. It was about making the effort to connect across differences. That's what makes you good at what you do. Her.